There is a very famous interview with Oasis songwriter, guitarist, and sometimes singer Noel Gallagher, in which he rails against the notion of giving the public what they want and creating art to satisfy popular demand. In typical Noel Gallagher fashion, it gets quite sweary at times, so I've paraphrased it and toned it down, but this is largely what he said. The consumer didn't want Jimi Hendrix, but they got him, and it changed the world. The consumer didn't want Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, but they got it. They didn't want the Sex Pistols, but they got it. Screw the customer. The customer doesn't know what he wants. Do you think fashion would stay the same if they asked the customer what they wanted to wear next summer? Fashion doesn't focus group its customers. Customers are idiots. 99% of them are idiots. Now, all of that is pretty rich coming from a guy who basically built his entire career on copying the Beatles and T-Rex, but that's a whole other side of the story. I don't necessarily agree with his final point there. In the sphere of demolition and construction, there are some very smart customers that know precisely what they want, but I wonder if they only know what they want based upon that which they already have. Now, I attend a lot of demolition and construction equipment product launches, and virtually every manufacturer will assure you that their latest machine, their latest system, and their latest attachment has been designed to satisfy a stated demand from customers. But what if Noel Gallagher is right? What if 99% of customers are idiots? But more than that, what would happen if we took the shackles off those responsible for designing our equipment? What if we gave them the freedom to think outside the box and to just create? What if they could set aside the requirement to abide by the latest arbitrary environmental target and just let their minds run free? What if they weren't playing keeping up with the Joneses against their industry rivals? What if they weren't so concerned with the latest existential threat from Chinese interlopers? And what if they stopped listening to customers for just a moment? Now, in truth, we've already had a glimpse of what might be possible. No customer asked Volvo to make an articulated truck using fossil-free steel. They did it because they could. As a direct result, the new range of haulers released earlier this week now feature low-emission steel, including a fair degree of recycled steel. No customer asked Bobcat to work with a video games company to develop a handheld controller to allow machines to be remotely controlled using a very familiar interface. But they did it, and in doing so, they potentially paved the way for more young people to join the sector. No customer asked Volvo to rethink the very notion of mine and quarry haulage using a fleet of electric-powered and autonomous mini-haulers. They just did it. It could yet change the world. Similarly, no customer asked Bobcat to cook up a transparent OLED display for use in their telehandlers, but they did it regardless. And in doing so, they not only gave us a glimpse of a possible future, they also provided a potential cure for the cab clutter that is now part and parcel of modern construction equipment. In each instance, the designers at Bobcat and Volvo took bold steps ahead of customer demands and ahead of customer expectations. You see, here's the thing. At the beginning of each season of Britain's Got Talent or X Factor, there is a stated desire to find the next Amy Winehouse or the next Ed Sheeran. But we already have both of those things. We also had a Frank Sinatra, which is why Michael Bublé is so bloody annoying. Rather than sticking with a proven formula and repeating what has gone before, regardless of how successful that might have been, surely we should be looking for the new and the exciting and the inspirational. If we don't, we could end up with an industry that is homogenized. Look at modern cars. They all look exactly the same. With just a few notable exceptions, they're all lacking in character and personality. We look back fondly at the Jaguar E-Type, the VW Beetle, the original Ford Capri, and the Aston Martin DB5, not because they look like everything else, but because they look nothing like everything else. The team at Volvo BM that created the original Gravel Charlie didn't seek guidance from a focus group. They identified a problem and they solved it. They solved it in the 1960s, and they're still solving it today. The JCB 3CX came not as a result of a customer survey. It came from Joe Bamford's single-minded vision. Half a century or more on, the backhoe loader remains a mainstay of his company and of the industry. All of which takes me back to my original point. What would the industry look like if we just took the shackles off those responsible for designing it? What machines would they create? What systems? What methodologies and processes? If we were handed a blank sheet of paper today and had no prior knowledge of construction and demolition tradition and heritage, would we design it the same? Or would we go off in new and exciting directions? I've got a couple of final points on this. Neither Bobcat nor Volvo are the biggest construction equipment makers in the world, but they are both unquestionably at the very cutting edge of future development. They've empowered their teams to think creatively and to stray from the familiar and well-trodden path. Likewise, Despe, not the biggest demolition contractor in the world, but through their development of the top-down way, they have marked themselves as different, unique, forward-focused. Just like Joe Bamford, they identified a problem and then created a solution. My final point, I guess, is this. I was told very early in my career that no one was ever fired for doing the same as their predecessor. Well, maybe they should be.